Step 10 is the determination of air inlet requirements. As the smoke is being extracted out of the building, replacement air is bound to be drawn into the building through any openings that are available. In large and complex buildings, inlet air is usually provided by natural inlet ventilators. These might be the ventilators in smoke reservoirs that are unaffected by the fire, or they may be automatic opening vents located at low level in the walls of the building, or they might be the doors that are used for means of escape, doors that automatically open on actuation of the smoke control system. Natural vents in unaffected smoke reservoirs can often be opened automatically at the same time as the vents in the reservoir that is affected by the fire, and these provide replacement air. If powered smoke extraction is being used, then generally it's found that the areas for inlet air can be smaller than for natural systems. However, if the area for inlet becomes too restricted, incoming airflow through escape doors may be at too high a velocity for easy escape. Through a series of tests, it's been determined that the safe upper limit for incoming air against the flow of members of the public who may be escaping the fire is 5 meters per second. This is equivalent to about 11 miles per hour. For members of staff, where we are not so concerned with the potential frailty of the people escaping, and so we accept that they might have to make their escape against a slightly higher incoming air velocity, the limit is 7 meters per second, which is equivalent to about 16 miles per hour. With these limitations in mind, we can establish the area of inlet that's required in order to keep the velocity down below these limits. Bear in mind that these limits are only applicable where we have powered smoke exhaust, and for natural ventilation we would not expect replacement air to be coming into the building at high velocity. Returning then to the powered systems, we know how much smoke is being extracted from the building, and it's a fair assumption to suppose that the same amount of air is going to be drawn into the building through the openings to the outside. If we divide the volume of air that is entering each second by the area of the inlets, then we get the velocity that the air is coming in through those inlets at. Remember from the section on natural ventilation that vents are not 100% efficient, and we assume the default value of 0.6 or 60% for the coefficient of inlet. This applies even if the vents that are being used are doorways. The expression shown here is an inequality, and that is to say that AI is not set as being equal to the value of the right-hand side of the equation, but it is set as having to be greater than or equal to that value. It has to be at least that size. In our example from earlier steps in this course, we had a situation where we had 6 fans, each with a capacity of 11 cubic meters per second. And so the maximum extraction rate that we could expect in such a building at any one time is 66 cubic meters per second. If you remember that example, the required volumetric extraction rate was 50.35 cubic meters per second. But this figure has no significance here, and neither does the 55 cubic meters per second that would be extracted if one of the fans were lost to fire. We're interested in the maximum possible extraction rate that can take place in the building. And for our example, this was 66 cubic meters per second. Putting our figures into the equation gives us the results shown here. AI must be greater than or equal to 66 divided by 5 multiplied by 0.6. And if we evaluate that, we get AI has to be greater than or equal to 22 square meters. We've assumed here that members of the public will be using the building, and so that's why we've used the figure of 5 in the equation for the upper limit for the velocity of the incoming air. What this tells us is that if we have a total of 22 square meters of inlet area, then the replacement air will enter at 5 meters per second. That if we have more than 22 square meters of inlet area, then air will enter at a slower velocity, and that if we have less than 22 square meters of inlet area, then air will enter at a greater and unacceptable velocity. That concludes the input for this step. Now Dave's going to take you through some examples, and after that there'll be some exercises that you can undertake on your own to confirm your understanding of this aspect of smoke control.